Well, I think this upcoming week I'm going to move into the new condo rectory down the street. It's been a long, slow process. You might recall that when Noemi broke in and destroyed a bunch of stuff that the police used pepper spray and tear gas to kind of try and get her. But that permeates everything. And so carpets, ceiling tiles, curtains, chairs, sofas, mattresses, all gets thrown out because they can't get it out of there. So part of the process has been just getting new furniture. And then part of the process, so the Paul Davis Company came and they clean what can be cleaned. And they bring it back in boxes, lots of boxes. Some of them were delivered to the condo. A whole bunch of them are over in the offices over there. And it's a little bit like Christmas because you open the box and you don't know what's going to be in it. And so you might have a blender and a pair of socks and a book and a hammer. You think, oh, look what I got for Christmas. All these things got cleaned. But part of my problem, and people have volunteered to help me with this, but is trying to get everything sorted and in its place. All of you who have moved probably have had this experience of you need to get the right thing in the right place. And I've had some friends over to the condo, and then they open up a drawer to help me, and they say, "Why is the silverware in this drawer?" Because that's where I put it, and that's where it belongs. I think it'd be better over here. No, don't move all the silverware. No, it's in its place. Things are, and I have to do with my library because all the books are all messed up, and so then I have to, okay, what is this? And so there's piles everywhere, so I can find them because it's got to be in its place. Maybe some of us are a little bit more OCD than others about things being in their place, but I think for most of us, we have a kind of set pattern of where we want things. Certainly that was the case in the Jewish community. They were very clear about things that were clean and things that were unclean. And that was important to them. Still important to this day. So you can read through the book of Leviticus and all the rules are there of what you can eat and what you can't eat. I sometimes feel bad for my Jewish friends because unclean foods like calamari and shrimp and lobster and crab, they can't have. They can't have bacon or a pork roast. And then they, out of respect for cattle, you can't mix dairy with cooked meat. So you can't have cheese on a pizza, or if you have a pizza, you can't have any meat on it. But then they're pretty strict about just how it's even prepared, because when I go with my Jewish friends to restaurants, sometimes they've gone back to inspect the kitchen to make sure that certain things are not cooked on the same stove as the others. Things are clean or unclean. Some of it was simply about setting them apart. So it made them who they were. These are things that name us. But they were not immoral. So if a Jewish friend of yours has a cheeseburger with bacon, which seems very bad in the Jewish notion, they're not immoral because of it. But there's a lot of stress that you shouldn't do that, because then you're not really a part of us. You're separating yourself from the community. It really is getting the wrong thing in the wrong place. You can't have that. That doesn't go there. Now, in today's gospel, Jesus seems to be critiquing that, but he's not. So I think we have to be careful here, because sometimes, like if I read it just very quickly, I might think, I don't have to wash my hands ever again, because Jesus said I don't have to wash my hands. And your kids would say, Mom, I don't have to wash my hands. Jesus said you don't have to. The disciples didn't wash their hands, so I'm never going to wash my hands again. But that's not what the point Jesus is making. What the Pharisees had done is taken the rules that were there for prior to going into the temple and then applying those to regular life. So there were clear rules for the priests, for the Levites, when they were coming into the temple, or if you were going to go there and make an offering, then you had to purify yourself. And you couldn't come there to worship if some things were wrong with you, like you had a cut. If you had any bleeding, you can't come in. So you had to purify. The Pharisees, at some point in their history, thought it was a great idea if those same rules were applied to regular life. So not just the rules of when you come at the temple, but when you go to eat, or your own bed, as you heard Mark tell us today. Well, they have all kinds of rules about making sure the beds are clean and the kettles are clean and the cups are clean, and all kept right. So the Pharisees were insisting upon this. And so it's that washing of hands before eating, that was an additional rule that the Pharisees came up with. And Jesus is saying, cool it. That's really not all that important. Don't worry about hand washing right before you eat. He's not saying you shouldn't do it. He's not giving just blanket permission and just ignoring all the kinds of things that we've learned about germs and those kind of things over the years. Not doing that. He's changing it. Not that law. He's changing the conversation. He's telling them that they are making a big scene over hand washing, but forgetting what really matters. And you get that long list from Jesus today that should probably poke us a little bit and say, maybe some of those things I might do. Maybe you're probably not adulterers and murderers, but the list goes on to just the final one, just being kind of goofy, folly. Huh? And who doesn't do that once in a while? It's a good list for us to look at. Because Jesus is kind of poking strongly the Pharisees not to miss the important things. And so he's poking us not to miss the important things. The things that matter in our life. Not to sweat so much over having everything in its right place. But how do I welcome people to my house? How do I love my neighbors? How do I speak to them and care for them? Those are things that matter. Not the little stuff. So maybe life is easier if everything is in its right place. And what Jesus is concerned about is that everything is in its right place inside of us. That those things that matter most to God matter most to us.